Yo guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we're going to be diving in to my personal Season 27 tier list for Diablo 3. Now, I should clarify, this is going to be a tier list that is based on how fun the class is to play and not necessarily how powerful it is. Having said that, a more powerful class is typically more fun to play, so there is a bit of a correlation between power and ranking. However, the general idea is going to be ranking them by how fun they are to play. Now, of course, all of this is my subjective opinion, so go ahead, feel free to drop a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite class is to play for Season 27, and let me know what you think of the list that I've made today. Let's go ahead and dive in. Alrighty, so to get started, the first thing that you may notice is that this tier list only goes to C. In Season 27, we got the Angelic Crucibles, which really added a lot to just about every single class. There were also a lot of set reworks, so there was a lot of opportunity to have fun with classes that you may not have played in a while. Let's go ahead and get started with the Wizard. I am going to place the Wizard on the B tier. I think that the new Tal Rasha set is really cool with the rework. It's generally very aesthetically pleasing when you've got all of these comets just coming out of the sky and crashing down on your enemies. In addition to that, the Wizard also is demanded in groups, and so if you like to play with other players, this could be a great choice because you're a great trash killer. If you're interested in pushing in Season 27, this build definitely has GR 150 potential with the Tal Rasha set rework. The rotation for the Tal Rasha set is pretty simple. 3 of your skills are just buffing you, and so the gameplay aspect of it is pretty straightforward. Alrighty, to get into some of the downsides for the Wizard, I find this build just a little bit annoying to play when there's enemies that are kind of harassing you. And what I mean by that is kind of the smaller enemies that just come at you really quickly and you've only got one of them just kind of sitting on you at a time. With the way that the Meteor build is designed, these little straggler enemies that are coming at you are kind of a pain because you need to drop a Meteor to take care of them, but the damage is on a delay. So while you're playing this build, you kind of have to do a lot of grouping of enemies. Some people may not mind that too much, but personally, I like to play a build where the damage is instant. When I hit the button, I want the damage to occur. The next downside, in my opinion, for the Wizard is that I don't really think that the season theme added a really cool effect like it did for the other classes. The 10 magic missiles ability is pretty cool, but most people aren't playing the Firebird set this season to take advantage of that. I do think that the Firebird set is more fun. Having said that, if you're going to play competitively, you want to go with the Tal Rashas. I remember during the PTR where the Magic Missiles Angelic Crucible ability would allow us to shoot 20 at a time. It was an absolute lag fest, but it was really fun. And I guess ultimately, to some extent, I'm just a bit disappointed that the best build is not really taking advantage of that 10 Magic Missiles ability. And the last thing that does not make me too thrilled about the Wizard is that your mobility is just pretty limited. You're mostly spending your time running around. When you are shooting off your meteors, you're kind of just standing in place. Sometimes the build can just feel a little bit stationary. I suppose personally, I like to play a build with a little bit more mobility and freedom to move as I please. Okay, so moving on to the Monk. I'm gonna go ahead and place the Monk in the A tier. I feel like the Monk generally does everything pretty well. It's capable of really fast T16 runs, bounty runs, low GR clears, gear farming, and especially for pushing this season with the LOD Wave of Light build. The Monk really feels enjoyable to me this season because I don't really feel like it has a weakness. With Monk this season, it really feels like you're building up towards something. Generally, you're going to want to start the Monk with a set like Ina's that's going to allow you to clear content very quickly. You can then take advantage of that build and that speed to farm out your LOD Wave of Light set. The Wave of Light build is pretty hard to actually gear out well. Because of how the Legacy of Dreams works, you're really going to want to get Ancient or Primal pieces in all of your slots to take advantage of the maximum damage multiplier. Because of this, I always feel like there's something to be doing on my Monk. This isn't one of those classes where I would get burned out after just playing for a couple weeks. There's really a lot to build up towards, and the GR 150 potential is absolutely there. I also feel like gameplay with Ina's is really fun. The dashing around all the time and the crashing waves is really aesthetically pleasing and also just feels like you're moving really quickly. There's multiple variants of the Ina's build as well that work really well for T16 content like keys and bounties, and it can also work pretty well for those greater rifts somewhere around maybe 100 to 110, maybe 115 if you've got the Paragon and the gear. Now, the reason that I'm putting the Monk on the A tier instead of the S tier is partially because of the Ina's nerf. I felt like the nerf to the Ina's set was way too harsh. I absolutely agree that it was deserving of a nerf. However, going from a 3000% damage multiplier on the 6-piece set down to 900% was a huge hit. I feel like my progress on the monk really slows down with this Ina's nerf. It's a lot harder now to use this set to get a really high Paragon level and really focus in on that Paragon farming. In addition to that, as much as I love dashing around and the mobility that it gives to you, it really bugs me to get stuck on terrain, and it kind of moves a little bit faster than my brain can go at times. But all things considered, the monk is absolutely a fantastic choice this season if you're looking to push up to GR 150s or just farm speed content. Okay, next up is the Necromancer. I'm going to drop the Necromancer into the B tier. Now there's a large number of things that I really enjoy about the Necromancer this season. To start off, the rework to the Trag set has been really cool. The health pool that set gives to you in the life regeneration feels absolutely crazy. The multipliers from the Blood-Tide Blade that we use in the cube for the Trag'Oul set are absolutely out of this world. Just to take a quick look at it, Death Nova deals 400% increased damage for every enemy within 25 yards up to 25 enemies. So with that one item alone, you can get a 10,000% damage multiplier. Considering that we're doing this with an area of effect as well, this makes the Necromancer phenomenal for clearing out large packs of enemies. Because of this, the Necromancer is really desired for groups as well as a trash killer. If you enjoy playing in a group, I would highly recommend considering the Necromancer this season. Personally, I'm a solo player, and so I don't really get to take advantage of that group demand for the Necromancer. However, I will say that just playing solo and killing trash is an absolute blast with this. Let's take a look at a few items and skills. So what we do for this build is we line everything up with our convention of elements cycle. As we're approaching the physical rotation, what we're going to do is use the skill Bone Armor. This is going to stun everything around us for 2 seconds. While they're stunned, the Crispin Sentence is going to give you a 300% damage multiplier. With anywhere near 25 enemies close to you, while you've also got all these multipliers together, is going to make you do damage that is out of this world. So if you can play this game patiently and wait for your COE cycles and group up enemies in the meantime, this could absolutely be the build for you. But of course, I do have a few complaints about the Necromancer this season. I'm more of a solo player, and the big problem that I have with this build is that the single target damage is absolutely abysmal. We're really dealing massive damage because of that Blood-Tide Blade when we have so many enemies surrounding us. This makes killing certain elites and Rift Guardians really difficult if they are not surrounding you with enemies. Now, of course, some Rift Guardians will spawn enemies, which are the ones that we want to see as the Necromancer, but I don't like taking that gamble. In addition to that, the mobility for the Necromancer, although they have Blood Rush, and that's a nice ability, while we're doing our damage, we are pretty much just standing in place. Personally, for me, the lack of mobility kind of takes away from the fun a little bit. And to round out the things that I don't like about Necromancers is that your Simulacrums can die. The cooldown on Simulacrum is 2 minutes. We're also not stacking cooldown reduction on this build, and so if your Simulacrums go down and you don't have this up, that's going to be a problem. It becomes an even bigger problem if you go into a Greater Rift and you die quickly. If that happens, you might as well leave and close the Greater Rift, because you're going to have to wait the entire time for this Simulacrum ability to come back up to even really start doing meaningful damage. It's for these reasons that I find the Necromancer just a little bit frustrating to play at times. However, all things considered, I really do enjoy the build. Alright, moving on to the Crusader. I'm going to put the Crusader in S tier. Now, once again, I will preface that this is a tier list for the most fun class to play, not the strongest one in the game. So let's dive into a few things that I love about the Crusader in Season 27. First up is the Akan rework. It's nice to see a new build for the Crusader that has GR 150 potential, but the reason that I really love the Crusader this season has to do with the Aegis of Valor set and the Angelic Crucibles. Calling down a Fist of the Heavens every 2 seconds, which is sped up when you use Steed Charge, is so aesthetically pleasing and an absolute blast. Dropping these comets on your enemies absolutely everywhere around you is so fun. In addition to that, the build is really easy to play. It's great if you just want to farm some GRs or farm some keys. It's really brain dead, and you're pretty much just riding your horse the entire time while the whole screen blows up. The build has absolutely wonderful mobility as well. Steed Charge is a great ability for just getting around the map quickly and also being able to go through enemies unhindered. In addition to that, I have always loved the aesthetic of the Aegis of Valor set. Because of how cool the Crusader looks, I feel like I get a little more immersed in the game. But it's not just about how cool he looks. The Crusader is fantastic for farming keys and farming bounties this season. People may argue with me, but my my subjective opinion is that it is the best build in the game for both key farming and bounties. It's very easy to control, and you never have any problems with resource management that ever slow you down. The build is also great for running GRs in the 110 to 115 range really quickly. Although it can't compete with something like the Strafe Impale Demon Hunter for getting Paragons this season, I think it is a good choice for a casual player if you are looking to farm a decent number of Paragons. The Paragon farming is also made a little bit easier by the fact that the build is sort of brain dead. You can watch Netflix on your other screen while playing this build pretty much at its peak. When it comes to Season 27, I can't really say much that is bad about the Crusader. I know that it's not demanded in groups, but once again, I'm a solo player, so that doesn't really affect me. I can't recommend the Crusader enough if you are looking to get into Season 27 just to test out these Angelic Crucibles for a couple months. I'm really hoping that somehow Blizzard finds a way to add the powers from some of the cooler Angelic Crucibles as item effects for the next seasons. It would be really cool to have some kind of pair of bracers in Season 28 and all seasons moving forward that actually had that ability on them. Hopefully, Blizzard considers doing something like that where they take some of the nicer Angelic Crucible powers and apply them to items. Because if I could play this Crusader build every single season for T16 farming, I would absolutely do it. Okay, so moving on to the Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor is going to be our lone class in the C tier this season. I really do feel like the Mundanugu set is pretty cool. The skills are pretty aesthetically pleasing. I really like how the spirit barrages are kind of just shooting off in all directions. In addition to that, the Bogadile is a pretty good time when you want to just do massive damage. I remember back during the PTR for Season 27, something was wrong with that Bogadile. Some part of me is a little sad that they fixed it because that thing could just one-shot anything. Unfortunately, I don't have many positive things to say about the Witch Doctor this season. It just feels relatively underwhelming to the other classes that are available. It feels really outclassed in T16 content. Most players are not thrilled when they join a public bounty game and they see a Witch Doctor in there. They're also not demanded in groups. I also feel like the seasonal theme for the Witch Doctor is just not as cool as some of the other classes. It's nice and all that enemies affected by the Locust Swarm are also haunted, and that you compare that with the Piranhas to pull all enemies into one place, but I really don't think that it competes with how cool some of the other powers are. When comparing it to things like the Demon Hunter being able to use Strafe Impale, or the Crusader that we were just talking about with the Fist of the Heavens flying everywhere, or even the 10 Magic Missiles ability that the Wizard has. In my opinion, these other abilities just add so much more fun to the class than the Angelic Crucible does for the Witch Doctor. I also think that the Mundanugu set has a pretty tricky execution. The mechanics for it feel pretty complex. And similar to the Necromancer this season, the single target damage on the Mundanugu set is just not there. I think that there's just too many cons for the Witch Doctor this season to really consider it a fun class. However, Blizzard did do a great job in Season 27, and I do think that the Witch Doctors are more fun than they were before, but ultimately when it comes to fun, I just feel like they're outclassed. Next up is the Demon Hunter. I'm gonna put the Demon Hunter on the A tier. The Demon Hunter this season just does everything really well. The Angelic Crucible that allows us to use Strafe Multi-Shot and Strafe Impale has been an absolute blast. The Strafe Multi-Shot build is fantastic for Torment 16 content. You can absolutely fly through bounties and fly through rifts to get your keys. Of course, because they're Strafe builds, you have phenomenal mobility as well. In addition, I love the synergy between the Smoke Screen and the Strafe ability. This allows us to avoid so much damage and even run through areas that would otherwise kill most characters just to keep moving quicker. The Demon Hunter is also demanded in groups. It also has multiple builds that are demanded for groups. There's the 0 DPS variant, and there's also the RGK Impale variant. The Demon Hunter has 3 viable builds, with Strafe Multi-Shot being your best option for speed content like getting keys and doing bounties, Strafe Impale being your best option for farming Paragons, and the Marauder's Sentry set for going for high GR pushes that can clear up to 150. Now I do feel a little biased because I always play a Demon Hunter. Every single season I tell myself I'm gonna play something else. Never happens. But next season, I swear, I'm gonna play a different character, but probably not. So I suppose the only reason that I'm not putting the Demon Hunter into the S tier is that I'm a little burnt out on the class. I've been using the Demon Hunter to spin to win for way too long. Although the Angelic Crucibles this season gave us really cool abilities with Strafe, I still kind of just feel like I'm doing the same old spin to win that I've always been doing. It's just more powerful now. But if you're looking to get into Season 27, I would absolutely highly recommend the Demon Hunter. Especially if you're somebody who just wants to play one class and use it for everything, I do believe that the Demon Hunter is the best option this season. And to round off this tier list with the Barbarian, I am also going to put the Barbarian into the A tier. The Angelic Crucible abilities are phenomenal for the Barbarian. Being able to hit with Hammer of the Ancients in all directions and also send out a massive shockwave after 10 hits is incredibly satisfying. If that's not your style, you can also use the Whirlwind Vacuum ability. Whirlwind has always felt like a kind of lazy build, but it feels even lazier now. It's also really valuable in group play. I feel like their ability to pull in enemies in groups is unmatched this season. And because of that, they are highly demanded in groups. As I mentioned, I don't play much in groups. However, it is my understanding that generally the Barbarian, for invites to group, is going to be playing the Z DPS variant. Even though I'm getting tired of them, I do love the spin to win builds. And I really enjoy what Blizzard did with them this season with the Angelic Crucible in the vacuuming ability. Now, one reason that I would put the Barbarian on A instead of S tier when it comes to fun is that your pushing build is really reliant on the convention of elements. Most of the time, you're just going to be running around and grouping up enemies. Once you've hit your fire cycle, you absolutely go off and do crazy damage. Although I feel forced to do it a lot in Greater Rifts, I'm not really a fan of grouping up enemies just to burst when the convention of elements cycle is up. So if you're not a huge fan of playing around the convention of elements cycle, I wouldn't recommend the Barbarian this season, at least not if you're interested in pushing really high GRs. Well, folks, I hope that you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and drop a comment down below and let me know what your favorite class is to play this season. If you feel like it, you're also welcome to put your own tier list in the comments as well. As always, folks, I genuinely appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.